Good morning, Vijay.
Good morning. Good
Good
evening.
evening for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can start right now. Okay,
Yeah, sure.
welcome Samarth, welcome Sree. So hello everyone. So again, welcome to the fourth episode of Tech Talk season 2. So today we have two very special seniors with us. So they are special for many reasons. I will come to that. Let me first introduce them to you. So firstly, we have Samarth Khanna. He is a CST 2022 batch pass out. He was an ex software engineer in Anchanto. He was during his college life. He was also the national finalist for Flipkart Grid 3.0. He was also the part of DevSoc and a very good speaker. And definitely, you can see his speaking skills if you go to YouTube and go to the session season 1 of Tech Talk that was hosted by him. So this session is a very special session for me also because this time the chairs are switched. Now he is as the guest part. Coming to our Sree is also CST 2022 pass out. She's ex Microsoft intern as well as software engineer. Um, she has a research internship during her college life. She did research internship at University of Hamburg. She is also recipient of Dard Wise Scholarship, and she has also remained as a student contributor at CERN. So both of them are currently pursuing their PhD at Pennsylvania State University in computer science and more specifically in artificial intelligence. So hi Samarth, hi Sree, how are you all doing?
Shree, you want to go first?
Good. We're doing pretty good. I mean, thanks for inviting us. I think it's great to see all of you back. Although, we see only you, but like I see a lot of people have joined. It's great to be here.
Right. And Samarth, anything you would like to add?
Nothing. I mean, we can just get into the questions. I think we have a lot of things to address, and I mean, if people have questions after the things that you've prepared, then I think we should have time for that as well.
Right, right. Let me just straightly then jump into the questions. So, uh, so, uh, so both of you have remained in the industry for a good amount of time. Samartha, you in Ancento, and Sree in Microsoft. So, when did you both decide that you want to go for higher studies and pursue PhD in computer science? Starting with Samartha.
So, for me, I always wanted to go for a higher degree in the United States or let us say some other country where the education is of a higher level. So, in India, you might experience this yourself that you don't have very, rigorous or let us say professional or very proficient kind of education. If any of you have also done any research, then you would see that, okay, it's like you have a project, you kind of publish it, and the standards for Indian conferences or journals are not very high. So the rigor is not very high in India. Whereas outside, you have people doing the best research in the world, right? So I wanted to be exposed to the kind of work ethic, or let us say the kind of level that you have outside. And I always wanted to go for a higher degree. Um, for me, for a long time, it was master's. I wanted to go for a master's degree. And just when, I mean, after college ended, so I decided that I'll work for a year and then I'll go for a master's. But after college had ended and I'd started working, I talked to a few folks about like people who were already doing their PhD. Shree was a big guiding factor for me. And I did a bit of survey and I saw that, okay, maybe MS is not the best option and PhD is a better option. Um, Albeit, I mean, obviously subject to the fact that you get an opportunity there. So that is something like I always knew I wanted to go for higher studies. After my job started, I did some searching when I was actually about to apply. I realized that I should go for a PhD. Why a PhD is better, we'll get into that, I think, a little
Right,
later into the talk. So, yeah.
right. And Sree?
So for me as well, I think it was kind of similar that I knew that I liked doing research, and for multiple reasons, like how I grew up, I saw people doing research. So even before I joined my undergrad, I had this idea that I would like to do like higher studies after my undergrad. And the experiences that I had during the undergrad also kind of reinforced that. And although, I mean, during COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty about whether people getting into colleges abroad would actually be able to go there and study there. And I mean, the application process is also quite daunting. So I decided to like work for a year first and then go back to searching for colleges. So that's how it went.
Right. So for both of you, you knew in your college days only that you want to, go in the field of research somehow or the other. Right. So that's great.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the process of, say, getting admitted into this, like foreign universities, particularly for, say, you have got admission for directly for PhD. So, like, what is the process and what are the things, students specifically at IIST can do during their, undergraduate student life, so that this process become easier for them. So, and they are aware of these things. So, Sree, can you?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot that one can do, but I think primarily, like, especially for people who are in their second or third year now, there's like a lot of time to explore things. So it's best if you can kind of find out something that you like working on, and it does not have to be something that you want to work on for the rest of your life or you want to do research on for the rest of your life, but something that you work on to have an idea about what doing research feels like, or because it is a little different from taking classes and taking exams or working in an industry. So maybe doing something to get some idea about that is helpful. And for that, like, I mean, there are multiple ways of doing that. One could do research within IIEST. One could do look for research opportunities outside of IIST, and say within India, outside of India. There are many structured programs that offer such opportunities for undergrad students. And apart from doing that, I think the remaining requirements, especially for a PhD, are kind of negligible. I mean, if you have a good research background, if you have some research experiences, then colleges mostly do not pay that much attention to, say, your test scores, standardized test scores, although you might have to still take them. So there is the GRE exam, which is like a graduate record examination. So it tests your graduate level skills in, say, mathematics and some English and stuff. But it's gradually becoming more and more obsolete. Most colleges don't ask for that anymore. And I mean, TOEFL or IELTS is like an English exam. So that, I mean, that's like very nominal stuff that you need to do. Samarth, anything you would have to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that you have apart from this. It's just that, I mean, the reason we want to have this conversation right now is that you should realize at this point that you have an opportunity to start your research now, build your research profile. If you're in your first year, second year, or even third year, and then, have a clear idea of what you want to do also, right? So if you know what you want to do, you'll know who to apply to. So, I mean, you have to mail professors, so you should know who you want to mail, what you should write in those mails. You should be able to read research papers, try to understand what they mean. Without having to go through the whole thing, you can, have some idea, okay, this is what they're trying to do. Am I interested in this? Can I imagine myself extending this work? So these are the kind of things, this is the kind of mindset you can start forming right now. And that's the most important thing. The other things are like very, they're kind of administrative things, the things that Sree mentioned, your IELTS or TOEFL or GRE, all these things can come. But like the main thing right now for people who are in their first, second or third year is to know, okay, I should start thinking about what I want to do in research if you're interested in research somewhere down the line. Yeah.
Right.
Somebody had a question.
I'll just interrupt 1 second. Are we recording, Kiranmoy?
Yes, we're recording.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that, yeah.
Yes, yes. One thing that I should have asked before asking this. So although like the thing is, I think I got the idea pretty clear. The students in first, second, and third year should develop the research mindset so that they can prepare themselves for say the future journey. One thing that I should have asked before this, that is like I mean, why anyone would like to go in the field of academia instead of say say when they can build their career around say in the corporate only, like so I think you both are a very good fit for answering this, since you have been especially Sree, Samarth, both of you have been in big corporate companies that people dream to get into. I mean, so and then leaving it and then pursuing to say higher academia. What do you think that motivated you to get into this journey? And secondly, what are the things that you think that people might not know, that if they know they will pursue or say consider this higher studies, higher academia as an option? So Samarth.
So that's a good question. So first of all, you need to know, okay, what are your interests? Like, what are you planning? What do you want to do with your career, right? So when you go into the industry, then there are multiple paths you can take. You can either, you take the technical route and you work as a software engineer, and if you like the job, then you keep on working. You get promoted into somewhere down the line, you get promoted into managerial roles. Or the other route is that you go for an MBA. Ultimately take a skip. Basically, you study an MBA and then you reach a managerial role right after you graduate from that. So it depends on what you're interested in. That's also a good path. That's something a lot of people enjoy. So the thing with research is that you always have something to grow, right? In the industry, this is something I've felt myself, and I've learned from a lot of people who are my friends who are working in like B.Tech, Amazon, like Sree, Microsoft, and then a lot of other places, like even in my own company. After a point, the work kind of becomes the same, right? So you have most, like, the things that you're doing are kind of similar to what you were doing before, or like you can change your teams also, but it's kind of the same thing. But when you go for research, then it's up to you to find new things. So when you go for research, you're creating new knowledge, right? So it's things that people have not done before. So it's kind of exciting that way. It's harder. Research, I would say, is harder. So in the industry, you can have a constant thing, or like close to constant things that you're doing, and you can continue doing those. But then after a point, it's the same. I mean, you're comfortable there, but it's kind of the same, because the fact that it's same makes it comfortable, right? You're kind of secure that way. But research is more unpredictable. You might try a lot of things, you might not succeed. It's kind of more exciting, I would say. And the good part is that once you get into research, both options are open for you, right? So it's not that you'll be stuck to academia. You go into research and you feel like, okay, I enjoy research, but I want to, go for a more industry-oriented applied job, right? So you can be a researcher in the industry. You do a PhD, you do a master's, you get into the industry, and you're a researcher there. And one more reason for, like, a lot of people have this misconception that, okay, if I go for a PhD, then I won't earn a lot, right? I'll not be able to save anything. I won't be able to give back to my family, right? But that's not really the case. So in the US, if you do a hard comparison of how much you earn, so I earn more now in as a PhD student over here than I was earning in my company earlier, right? The difference is that the cost of living over here is higher, but of course I still can save a lot, right? So that's the case for any PhD student. So you get a good stipend over here. Obviously, it's not the kind of salary you'll get over here in the US in the industry, but it's still very good to sustain yourself and save. After you're done with your PhD, you have like such opportunities open for you that you like, money is not a problem then. So wherever money is a concern, it's not as much of a concern while you're doing your PhD, and then after you're done with your PhD, it's not a concern at all. Right. So if you're deciding on the basis of money that I should go to the industry, that's not something that should be a deciding factor, because you can always choose to go back to the industry, and researcher roles in the industry in the industry pay way more than like normal your software engineer or things like that. So that is something that people can consider if this misconception exists. And apart from that, I mean, ultimately it depends on your interest, right? So there are some people who enjoy management, right?
Right.
Perfectly fine, you should go for that. There are some people who enjoy, learning about things, trying to crack the codes of like what they're learning about and things like that. So for them, I think research is the best route.
Right. Sree, would you like to add anything?
You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Samarth just said, and ultimately it boils down to what you really want to do. But like personally, what I think a lot of people would also resonate with this. But when I mean, one of my guides, he told me that, I mean, I was very inspired by the fact that if you are doing research, then it's like you're contributing to the entire body of knowledge created by all humans ever, which for like an undergrad student is a very starry-eyed, very that kind of an idea to get oneself motivated. And it's like, I mean, the work you do, which is also true for other fields, I would say, but the work you do, it kind of stays on even if you are no longer working, or even if you no longer exist altogether. So I mean, that could be one of the reasons why a lot of people feel really inspired to do research, that you have this feeling of contributing to the greater good or something like that. But that's also true for many industry positions, even managerial people. I mean, everybody does something for a greater purpose, right? And like Samarth said, I think this is a very recurring thing that we hear from multiple people. I've experienced that myself, especially if you are part of B.Tech in India. It is not unlikely. It is hard to come by very challenging kind of work. It is mostly like you have really great products which you help maintain. Not discouraging anyone, you still might come across really challenging good work, but I've heard from multiple places that that's the case. So I mean, that kind of beyond a point, it motivates people to look for, I mean, if you are still young, and I mean, if you are here, then I'm sure all of you really want that, you want that creative zing in the kind of work that you do. So that kind of motivates people to not get stagnated and secure, like Samarth said, in a corporate position, and push themselves further.
Right. So one thing. So I think I got the extract. So there was one line that Samarth said that while doing PhD, like finance is not a problem, and after you do PhD, that's not a problem either. Just I'd like to ask one thing, that is like for many people there's a common perception that okay, people who do PhD, that's only for the reason of say being professor. So that's what I'd like to agree with you that as well as inquire to you. So that there are many other positions as well other than being a professor that can benefit from like a research profile, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, so most of the researchers you'll find in Facebook, so in like Facebook Menlo Park, Google Mountain View, or let's say this Redmond, Microsoft Redmond, the people who are doing the main research are all PhDs, right? So it's kind of like a prerequisite, and PhDs from the best of the places, albeit, right? So you need to, I mean, for doing that kind of research at that level, obviously you need to have your own contribution to knowledge, that experience of, iteratively trying different things, producing some new knowledge. And I mean, it's simpler than said, like producing new knowledge is like something that nobody has thought of before, right? So that takes a lot of effort. And all these products that you see from these new companies, they come from researchers who have, gone through their own research process before that, right? So, I mean, you would see people who have done pre-doctoral programs. So like there are a lot of pre-doctoral programs like in Microsoft, Google, or Facebook, which require researchers to do their research. So like people have done their masters, then their pre-doctoral program, and then their PhD, and then they're now industry researchers, right? And then people make shifts also. So that I know people who are now professors but were earlier in the industry, right? Now there are people who are earlier in this, like now in the industry, but were earlier professors, right? So these are things that are very dynamic, but at both places they're doing research, right? And there are some people who do both at the same time. So one of the most star examples of this is Jeff Hinton. Jeff Hinton is like the godfather of neural networks that everybody's using today. And he's partly at University of Toronto, if I'm not wrong, and Google, partly at Google. There are a lot of people who do this, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility in that sense. If you're a researcher, then everybody wants you, right? So that's the thing. Yeah.
Right, I get it. So on this context only, I would like to ask one thing that so definitely many people those who were not aware will like to pursue further studies, but many are not aware about the opportunities available. So can you enlighten them about some of the opportunities available? Like you have directly, after your B.Tech, you have directly you are pursuing your P.H.D. So for many people, they want to do that, but they firstly, many of us are not even aware that okay, one can do PhD after B.Tech without doing their masters. So that's one big thing. Like even I got to know about this thing in fourth year. And so can you tell us about the opportunities that we have, as form of MS, masters, or directly PhD, and for each of those opportunities, what are the criteria that you needed to fulfill to proceed into those things?
Sree, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, like I mentioned for a previous question, that the primary important thing for getting into any PhD program is to gather some kind of research experience, and there are many ways to do that. So, I think in CST, students get the opportunity of doing a mini project in their second year. So Samarth and his group, they published some research out of that project itself. So that is one way of going about things. Then I think almost all colleges within India, all IITs, IISC, IISER, all of them offer summer internships for students starting from their second year of undergrad. So there's a program called IIEST SRFP, if I'm not wrong, which is like, it's like a joint application you make for a research internship, and then multiple colleges might pick you up from there. And for internships abroad, there is the DADWISE program that's in Germany. There's the Sharpak program, which is in France. There is ITAX GRI, which I see a lot of people from our college already get. And I think DAD as well, a lot of people get. I see Anubhav is in the meeting, so like he was a great example of what he did in his during his undergrad. And then there are also internship programs in the US. There's a program called the S.N. Bose Scholar Program, which kind of allows you to do a research internship in the US. There's the USC Viterbi program. There are programs in colleges in Singapore, NTU, NUS. They both have like India-specific programs to take Indian students. And beyond that, why I would suggest going through a structured program first is because that is lesser effort than reaching out to a professor yourself and asking them to collaborate with you. And once you have that kind of experience through a structured program, if you feel like, yes, I like doing this, then the best way to form long-term collaborations, meaningful collaborations, is to actually like send a cold hard email to any professor whose work you like. And often they are willing to take you on as a collaborator. Initially, you might not get like a funded internship sort of situation. It might not be like that. But a lot of people begin working there, and then they, shift to, say, being an intern or being a visitor at some university, and like doing things like that. And I think beyond that, like Samarth mentioned, there are great pre-doctoral programs that have come up within India these days. I think Google offers one, Microsoft offers one, which is very, very prestigious now. And there are multiple. So there's one by IIT Madras and AI for Bharat. They are like a non-profit and a university working together. You have TCS Innovation Labs offering pre-doctoral positions. Then you have there are a number of startups have also come up who work on, especially on AI. You'll have like many opportunities. And beyond that also, like Samarth again mentioned, that you have residency programs in like Google, Facebook, which are outside of India as well. So starting early is very helpful, because for like a big place like Microsoft Research or Google Research to accept someone as a pre-doctoral fellow, they need to see that you have some experience. Because this space also has become very competitive, especially with the boom in AI. So
Yes.
most people already have some experience, but for someone who's in their second or third year, it's a great time to start. Even if you're in your fourth year, if you still want to do research, that's also always a great time to start. So yeah, I think there are plenty of opportunities. And for anybody, all of this is usually just a Google search away. Like, go out there, there are many people who have created repositories, compiled the list of opportunities and put them out there. So that can be very helpful.
I think, that is something like, since this session is recorded, this is something that everybody can revisit and, check all these opportunities that Sree just mentioned. But Kiran Moy also wanted to know about the opportunities that to get into these degree programs like masters or PhD. So these are the two main things you can do, and let me just go over like the options you have as far as these are concerned. So the traditional path that people used to use earlier, this people did not know, like even I did not know this until my college ended, that you can apply for a direct PhD. So before that, I knew that you can only apply for a master's. How do you apply for a master's? You look at the profile, or you look at the university, and you see, okay, this is the degree I want. So since all of you are computer science students, you can apply for MS in computer science, MS in informatics, MS in, you can even apply for so there are some departments where it's electrical engineering and computer science, so you can apply for those degrees also. Then you can apply for a lot of like specified degrees. So like some colleges like CMU, although that's very expensive, but they have like language technologies, and they have like a lot of other departments which are not traditionally like computer science departments, but they have data science, or like masters in machine learning, masters in artificial intelligence. All these are degrees that you can apply to as computer science students, right? So because you're computer science students, you have a lot of options open for you, right? Now, when you apply for a master's degree, you're supposed to pay, right? So the fees are very high. But what people do sometimes is that they go for a master's degree and they pick up a job. Either that's a student job, which is like you work as a student employee at one of the campus facilities, or like some eating facility, like a lot of people work at places like McDonald's or something like that, to fund themselves, right? So to get a stipend on the side. Now, the best case scenario for a master's is when you go and you work as an assistant. So you get an assistantship. So that is either a teaching assistant, or a research assistant, or a general graduate assistant, right? So a teaching assistant is somebody who has to help instructors with classes, right? So you either take some classes, you do some grading, you do some, you create some assignments, or like some things that are supposed to do with the coursework. Research assistant is something that you do as part of your this thing. You join a lab. So every professor has a lab that they work on, right? So like the lab that I'm part of is called the FAIR lab. So I work on fairness. And the acronym is FAIR. It's called Fundamental Artificial Intelligence Research Lab, right? So if there is somebody who's an RA in this lab, then they're supposed to do the research of this lab. So there are some research problems that this lab is solving, and you're supposed to do the research that is required to solve this problem. So like you read research papers, you create your own like you have open problems, and then you solve those problems either theoretically or experimentally. So that's a research assistant. Now, if you are a research assistant or a teaching assistant as a master's student, then your tuition is most likely waived off, right? So you don't have to pay tuition, and you will get a stipend. So then it becomes kind of like a PhD, right? But if you're not bound to have like a PhD, you can graduate with a master's degree. A master's degree is normally 2 years. A PhD is 4 to 5 years, right? So this is if you're a master's student, you have the option at some places. Now, this is university specific. Like it might be possible that you get a TA or an RA. It might not be possible. If you're a PhD student, you 100% are funded, right? In very rare cases, you are not. But when you're a PhD student, you're funded with a TA or an RA. So it's already from the get-go, when you're leaving India, when you're getting the admission, you know that you're a TA or an RA. right? So these are the two main paths that you can take. And the main point is that you can apply for a PhD directly, right? So like you apply for a master's degree with your SOPs and your LORs, your statement of purpose and your letter of recommendation and your various exam scores, you apply with the same things for a PhD if you have, let us say, some research background, right? So these are the two main things you can do as part of like a degree. But all the things that Sree mentioned are the things you can do to build up to this, right? Your research internships, your research fellowships, your pre-doctoral programs, and those are the kind of things that you can do to build your profile for applying for a PhD, so that you have that research background. Yeah.
Also, just to add to this, I think what we talked about is US specific. There are also
Yes.
like multiple opportunities, especially in the Europe, in Germany, in UK. I mean, there are great colleges that offer masters and PhD programs, but I think in most of them, it is not allowed to apply for a PhD if you don't have a master's. I'm not sure about this, but I think in most places you need to have a master's degree before you can apply for a PhD. But along with that, I mean, masters in, say, Germany or Switzerland or probably UK is not as expensive as in the US. But like the funding situation, I mean, it works very similarly. That over there also, if you go for a master's, you can get student jobs, you can get jobs within or outside the university. But it might be slightly different from what the situation is in the US, and it would be best to like check university wise what the rules are.
Right. So you answered like like two next of my questions. So definitely, I was about to ask about the contrast between MS and PhD. So I think everyone like has got that answer pretty well. And also, I was about like that how do you cover our expenses like while doing masters and PhD? I think that question is also covered. So so those are the things I have planned to ask. Okay, so those are the things are covered.
So,
like
Kiranmoy, the expenses part about masters. So this is one way, right? So the TA and other thing is one way. But when you're going for a master's, then in 99% cases, you don't already have a TA and an RA. So like this is important to mention that initially people do have to either self-fund themselves. So like they have to pay for the first semester of they have to pay the first semester's fees for the masters, or they have to take a loan, like they pay it from their pocket or they take a loan, right? So that is something that you have to do. And in most cases, it's not guaranteed that you'll get a TA or an RA. People do internships, right? So you finish your first year of masters. At the start of your first year of masters, like it happens in India, you sit for placements in August or September, right? So when you go there, like you start applying to companies, right? So it's not as much like India in the terms of placements. So there's no company that comes to your college and you sit for the placements. No, it's more like off-campus placements through and through, right? So you apply to different companies and you ensure a job for the next summer, and the earnings that you have are very good from that internship, so that you can pay some part of your tuition back, right? So these are the things that, like, there are multiple ways of funding, but most people initially have to take a loan, right? Or they have to self-fund in the case of masters. But in the case of PhD, you're funded from the get-go. So like when you leave India, you're already funded.
Right. So
Right.
I think that's the reason that many people prefer if they have to do masters, so they prefer in India rather than in outside India. I think the cost of doing masters is very much less in India compared to outside.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I think beyond the sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think beyond the cost, especially if you're applying to the US, many colleges recommend that if you ultimately want to do research, they recommend that you apply for a PhD program. And then if you don't like the PhD program, you can always take a master's and end your degree there and like move out. That is possible. But they recommend that you apply for a PhD program because, I mean, if your interest is in doing research, then it's difficult to do a lot of meaningful research within like 1 or 1.5 years, which is the time that a master's degree effectively leaves you with. So for many colleges where the master's is also funded from the get-go, which is very rare, say places like Cornell. Cornell is one place that I know of that fully funds masters, but they take UMD, University of Maryland, College Park. They admit like much fewer students for masters as compared to a PhD. So like in those colleges, getting into a master's is much harder because like the university is spending money on you, but they don't know if you're like committed to do research with them long term or not. So you have to be like a very prolific candidate to get accepted into a master's. Rather, applying for a PhD is much easier in such places.
Right. So I think the takeaway from for first, especially for first and second year students, is that if they want to pursue research in future, they can start, like applying to professors, start some, doing really, writing some papers up. So one more thing I think people will be willing to know, I think the CGPA plays an good amount of role. So when you trying to pursue higher studies, and so is your research profile. How important is your job experience was when you were trying to get into say this program?
So, I mean, job experience is not like if it's not related to the research that you're doing, then it's not really relevant, right? So, I mean, in Anchanto, I worked on like data pipelines and data collection and how to handle large amounts of data, but it's not really related to what I do now. So it's not very essential. Like the job experience is not very beneficial for PhD. For masters, yes. For masters, you have like if you have job experience, then your chances are like better because they know that you're experienced. For PhD, the extent of it being beneficial is the fact that you've spent some years working or you have some experience in the industry working with other people and you worked on some projects, albeit not research projects. I mean, that is the extent to which it is beneficial, but like sometimes it's even derogatory. So like they're like, okay, if you're writing in your SOP, that you're so interested in this research and this is what you want to do. So like that's what people do in their SOP, right? I this is what I want to do from like since I was a kid and I want to do this thing, I want to change the world and stuff like that. So they're saying okay, you're saying you want to do that, but you did this job for like 1 or 2 years. How is this consistent with what you were saying? So like sometimes it can be derogatory also. That's why I mean we're stressing on trying to recognize if you want to do research already so that you don't spend time doing things that you don't want to do that are not in line with your greater goals for the future, right? So job experience, like if you want to put it simply, job experience not so important for PhD, can even be derogatory. For masters, yes, it's good, important. So that's the simple answer.
Right. Sree, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's actually very true, and I think we have experienced that ourselves. Like professors being, "Oh, you did this work, then I mean, how it was not related to the research you are saying that you want to do." So, but I think even then, if you have a situation where you do go and work in the industry before going to research, overall, I would say it is not a bad experience to have because the things that you learn, the experience of say writing clean code, knowing version control like inside out, because those are some things that any industry job would teach you, or like in general, just like communicating, dealing with people, all of those things are definitely going to come handy. So if you are in a position where you are already going to be working and then you think that I might like to go research, don't think about that negatively. It is going to be helpful for you. And I think a lot of professors, like my professor who I work with, he really recognizes that too. And like in some cases, you never know, like any piece of learning that you get from the industry that also might be useful for you when you're doing research.
Right. Any learning along the way can be, like part of what I think what you're trying to say. At the same time, I think I agree with Samarth as well that if you are able to like do things that are more aligned with what you want to do in future, you can. So I think it boils down to us as well as the individual. Like, what are the constraint on us? What are the factors are there? So I think we have covered most of the things. One thing I am very much interested to know that since you have opportunities, since currently you're in US, so you have many other opportunities coming up to you as you like proceed in time. So what is your future plan starting from Sree?
Right now it's actually hard to say because like a PhD is a very long, uncertain sort of program, so I don't know where it's going to take me. For now, I mean, I would definitely like to end up in a research role, be it in the industry or academia. I would personally prefer academia a little more than industry, but I mean, I cannot definitively say that. Yeah, so
Right. And Samartha?
It's very similar for me. Like PhD is a long time, so right now my focus is not on what I'll do later. It's more on like how can I do my research well, right? So the problems that I'm solving, I mean, I am interested in those. So let's see where that goes and like what I can do with that. So that's more important for me right now. That okay, like what am I going to add to the knowledge? Like this thing that Sree mentioned, like you're adding to the body of knowledge in the world, right? So what am I adding, right? So I mean, am I able to create something that helps people, or am I able to do something that is beneficial, right? So, I mean, as long as I can do that, the other things will follow. So the main focus is not on what I'll do after this, but yeah, I mean, that's something I'll worry about later.
Right. You have the possibilities open, and you will see what fits you better. Right.
Yeah.
I think you have answered most of the questions we had. I would like to have if anyone from the audience have any question that I might have missed or you want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm more interested in knowing now what other people, like the people who have attended this meeting, have to ask. So, like specific questions, like confusions that you have that, okay, I was thinking about this, but I got stuck over here. Like, I have this confusion, but I don't know what to do. I'm in this situation. Like, even very specific questions you can ask, like specific just to you also works. Like, maybe somebody else can learn from what you're asking.
Yes.
I wanted to ask one question. There is, are there any scholars?
Simon,
Can't hear him properly.
I cannot hear you. Also, can you just maybe? Simon, your voice is not clear. Can you try? Moving somewhere around.
Scholarship programs for masters in the US or let's say Europe?
Right. So, good question. So, scholarship is something you have to apply for separately. There are some programs, but normally they're very competitive, right? So you have every university that wherever you're applying for a master's, you're saying, okay, you have a page where there is okay funding options, right? So you have a list of resources you can refer to for scholarships. Those scholarships are mostly for US citizens, like in the US. So I'll come to Europe later. And some of them, which are for Indians, are very competitive. So normally, if there is a scholarship that you're eligible for, your university gives it to you, right? So like this is in the case of like PhD. That so Sree was eligible for a scholarship, and she was automatically given that scholarship when she got her offer, right? So for masters, I'm not sure to what extent the university does that, but there are some scholarships that you get if you're a like good student and you fit certain categories. Sometimes it's also dependent on what demographic you come from. Do you come from an underrepresented demographic? Do you come from a financially weak demographic? So like these are certain things that determine whether you get a scholarship like that or not. But in some cases, if you're eligible, the university gets it for you. In some cases, you can apply separately, but those are like very competitive. Although it's a good idea to apply, right? So you can visit the university's page, look at the funding options. They will have certain resources. So it's different for every university. You'll have certain resources which give you, okay, these are the scholarships that are open, or you can check your eligibility, whether you're eligible for them or not. And then you can even apply for them. So like there are certain opportunities, but that's not something that a lot of people bank on for funding for masters, if that's your interest.
Yeah, just to add to this, when people go for a master's, there are two components to the cost. One is the tuition fees that you pay to the college, which is like the fees that we are also aware of, say, when studying at IIEST. And the other component comes from your the expenses that you incur while living as an international student in abroad, basically. So I think what Samarth mentioned, that that's very correct, that scholarships are very specific to the university. So it's always best to like go check the specific pages in a university first, because there is no like central rule that all universities follow for scholarships. And also in most cases, I think scholarships are enough to cover either like one component of this cost. Either they can be enough to cover your tuition fees, or they can be enough to cover your like living expenses to some extent. It is unlikely that a scholarship covers everything for say 1 year. There also are scholarships like that, but like Samarth mentioned, they're very competitive, but nonetheless it's a good idea to always apply for them. But yeah, and yeah, Samarth, you were going to talk about Europe as well.
I mean, Europe, I think you can answer that better than I would, because like you've explored Europe in much more detail. So you can, yeah, go ahead.
So I think I had explored mainly like colleges in Germany and in Switzerland. So the great advantage about studying in Germany is that there are no tuition fees in the public universities. So there are you have to pay like a very nominal amount, which comes to around say 30,000 INR for a semester. That's how low the fees are. So the only component that you have to cover is basically your living expenses while you live in Germany. And the other difference between Europe and US is that in the US, because of how the visa is for students, you are only allowed to work for a certain number of hours within the campus, if I'm not wrong. You can only take up jobs within the campus and work only for a certain number of hours, and how much money you get paid for that is also going to be very well regulated. But as far as I know, in Europe, there is no strict rule that you have to work within campus. I know a lot of people who take up jobs, say at restaurants, say in libraries, anywhere else around the city. Say maybe you can drive, so you drive for someone, or you do anything like those are jobs that pay really well over there. And usually they are not restricted to like, I mean, there is a restriction of the number of hours you can work for, but the amount of money that you get is going to be like dependent on where you work. Maybe people there decide to pay you more, so it's less regulated that way. So in Germany, it's usually with some effort, it is easy to cover living costs, because they also, I mean, besides doing all of these jobs in Germany, it's also possible to take up jobs within the university. Or Germany has a trend of having I think it's called student work or student internships or something, which is like at external labs. Even big tech companies have part-time roles for students who are studying at a German university. So it's much easier that way. And I think for Switzerland, it's like slightly different, although like two of the major colleges in Switzerland, ETH and EPFL, they offer scholarships that cover complete costs for like 2 years, but those are very competitive. And yeah, I mean, and UK, I'm not really sure about. I think UK is going to be very similar to the US, like the funding situation.
I've done a lot of research before getting into. Have a lot of experience in that. I think we have another question in chat box. How do you compare the prospects of a master's or PhD in US, UK, Europe, and as well as in Asia like Korea, Singapore, and Japan? Are there any hard preference for any location? I think this is a very good question, and I should have asked this question.
Good question.
Samarth, would you pick it up?
Yeah, so Nishan, the thing is, what do you want to do your master's or PhD in? So I'll assume that you want to do your PhD in computer science or master's in computer science. Is that correct? Is Nishan there in the meeting? Of course. You can unmute. Okay, electronics. Okay, mainly ECE. Did he mention that? Okay, right. So I think you can talk to Anubhav. Anubhav is also there in this meeting, but to the extent of my knowledge, I can also answer your question. So the number of opportunities in the US, so education is very good everywhere, right? So Germany, UK, US, Japan, Korea, education is really good. The point in the US is quantity, right? So you have very good education at multiple places, right? So you have many more places that are at that level. So, I mean, where you'll have like two very good colleges in Switzerland, which is ETH and EPFL, what Sree mentioned, you'll have like 50 in the US, where you have two concentrated cities where a lot of software development or a lot of research or a lot of like software development I mentioned because of masters, or good work is happening in the tech industry in two cities in, let's say, Germany, or let's say UK, five, six cities, you'll have like 100 in the US. And most of big tech is kind of situated in the US right now for computer science, right? Electronics is also, I think, roughly similar. Although I'm not, an authority on this. I think Anubhav has done way more research on this, and he has like he has earned his stripes to prove it. So you can, yeah, I think Anubhav is also saying something. So US is just like, it has quantity. So it has all quantity and quality. So like there's a lot of opportunities in the US. That's why going to the US is a good idea, so that you can find something if you're a good researcher, right? So applying to the US is normally a better bet. I mean, that's why getting into the US universities, the best of the US universities, is also tougher, right? So that's something that I hope that helps. But yeah, definitely get in touch with Anubhav as well. He has a lot of experience in this field. Yeah.
Hello, Bhaiya. Wanted to ask about Australia,
Yeah.
where the masters and PhD does not have necessarily any coursework. So, how do you suggest people who want to go there? Because only thing what matters is the research proposal you have agreed with your professor and your dissertation, which you pass. So, and the opportunities in Australia are coming up. So, I had some questions here.
So there are some good universities in Australia. I think if you talk about Monash, then you have your University of Melbourne, UNSW. There's somebody in my research field who's like a very good researcher in UNSW. But I mean, I've not explored as much what opportunities Australia has. But I think if you go to these universities, it depends on the professor you're applying to, right? So like the professor I like, who is very good in my field, he has like really, really good research under his belt. So like there are a lot of people who want to go and work with him, and like there are some very good conferences that he publishes in, organizes and stuff. So I mean, you have to kind of look at what research is happening at a certain place. And I'm not sure about the cost of masters in Australia, but it is like, it's non-trivial. So you have a good amount of money you'll have to pay for getting a master's in Australia as well. Of course, P.H.D is going to be funded there as well. But if you have a good professor who's doing good research, then it's a good idea to apply there. But the reason I would still suggest that apply to places in the US is because there are a lot of things around that. So you'll have many universities in a cluster. So wherever you go, you'll have a lot of universities collaborating with each other just because of geographical distance, right? Because they're not as far away from each other. They go to conferences that are close by, and there's industry nearby. So like if you go to the California cluster, then you have your Silicon Valley nearby. If you go to Seattle, then you have Washington, you have your Seattle cluster, Redmond and everything nearby. If you go to New York, then you have that financial cluster nearby. Boston, you have that cluster nearby. So, I mean, it's more of what things are already present there. In the US, you have a lot of things around where you are also. So the opportunities increase that way. But of course, if you have some good research labs, some good professors that you see in Australia or any other places, then do apply. I mean, that's also a good idea.
Yeah. Sree, would you like to add something?
Yeah. I think what Samarth mentioned is very true, and especially so for people looking to do a master's degree, because the goal after doing a master's degree is to either find a job or to shift to a PhD program. And there having a good network of researchers is very helpful. Say you do a master's degree and you work with one professor, and then you don't like working with them as much. So in the US, in any university, you have like 10 other professors doing similar or like slightly different work maybe in the same department or maybe in close by colleges. So that way it becomes very easy. But for people who are sure they want to do a PhD and they want to do research, I mean, it won't make as much of a difference, because the primary factor for making a decision should be that whose research do you like more, or who do you want to work with. Because I I mean, we know of people who have done their PhDs in India, but they have done like great research. I know of professors in, say, NUS, NTU, who are doing like amazing research in, say, NLP or AI. There are, I know of someone who studied entirely in China, and they did, he did his PhD, he was a professor at some university, or maybe he was working in industry in China, and last year he joined as a professor at MIT. So, I mean, all of that happens. When it comes to research, it's really important what work you're doing and with whom you're doing. Like your immediate advisor, the college name does not matter at all. I think that's also something we should have stressed earlier, that when you're doing research, like your advisor is the only like authority that people know you by. No one cares about which college you come from. And I think apart from that, like Nishan asked also about Asian countries like Korea, Singapore, and Japan. I think Singapore is pretty much like people speak English and everything there. But in Korea and Japan, although education is amazing, it's really good. A lot of good research comes out of there. For living, I mean, for having like a social life, you might need to also know the language. It might just help you survive there. I mean, just enjoy your time there, because if you are doing a PhD, it's going to be a long time, right? So that's one thing that one should factor in. I think that's true even for, say, Germany or Switzerland. Knowing the language is definitely going to make it easier to live there. So that when preparing, that's also something people should keep in mind.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a great
I think
insight.
there's a question from Mayuki, that is, what if one does masters in Germany and applies for a remote job in the US? So that's a good question, because that's something that that's the first kind of link you'll form, that okay, masters in Germany is not as expensive, so let me do masters over there, and let's say any other opportunity. No, I won't limit my answer to just remote jobs in the US, but let's say you want to do a job in the US, remote job, or even a PhD in the US. So this is something that we had also actively considered. But the thing is, getting a job in the US is kind of like doing a master's or a PhD is kind of a gateway to get a job in the US, right? Because even so, getting a remote job is slightly different from this. You can apply, and if you have good credentials, then you can get a remote job. So that's true in the general case. To that extent, for a remote job, having a master's in Germany is going to help you get the skills that you can that you might need to qualify for that job, right? So to that extent, it's helpful. But if you do a master's in Germany, then it's more beneficial to work in Germany itself, right? So you can even live there. You can settle there. If you like the culture, then you can go ahead with that. If you want to do a remote job from India after doing a master's in Germany, that is also an option. I mean, I would not say that's not an option at all. Theoretically, that's an option, that you get the skills that you do through your masters, but it might not be the most efficient option, in my opinion, right? So you can do multiple other things. So getting a remote job in the US, if you want a software job, then competitive coding is a really good method that people use to give software jobs. So like, I think IIST knows this by now. So if there's one thing that is improved in IIST, that is competitive coding culture. So if you want a remote job, then you can do some competitive coding and get a good rating, and then you can apply for these jobs. And I think you can get a job that way. I think I've seen people get that. So doing a master's in Germany would not be the best way to get a remote job in the US if that is what you want. But if you do a master's in Germany, there are other benefits of that. Now, coming to the thing of doing something in the US after doing something in Germany, that's also not the most efficient route. So if you want to ultimately go to the US, do not spend your time on doing a degree somewhere else, right? Because it's not going to be very different from applying from India. So what I'm saying is that if you apply now from India for a degree in the US, you're not as much worse off than somebody who is applying with a master's in Germany for a degree in the US, right? So instead, you can try for whatever kind of degree you can get in the US, whatever funding options you have, if you want to go to the US ultimately. If you do not want to go to the US, then of course, you can go for a degree in whatever country you think is, where you would want to go ultimately, right? But this shift that, okay, I do a master's in Germany and then I go for a PhD or a job in the US, that's not very easy. That's not very easy. Plus, you're spending a lot of time in doing that other degree.
Yeah, Sree, yeah, anything
Yeah, I'll just add to that because I mean that's I think a great question. But like when you do a master's, say in Germany, you get a student visa, and that usually comes with like additional benefits. Like you get say a few years to work in Germany. They allow you to work there for a few years. So most people usually like to take that up. But if like going by the specific question that if you want to do a remote job in the US, essentially you would have to come back to India because Germany won't allow you to stay there and like do a remote job for some other country, as far as I know. So it, like Samarth said, that would, I mean, it might add, definitely it might add to your skills, but if it also depends on like where do you want to be after like you do your degree. So I mean, and like he mentioned that if you want to ultimately go to the US, then if you go to Germany, I mean, even when we were exploring, I think this is one of the main options that we considered. But from what we learned, that it's a lot of effort. Like if you go for a master's degree to Germany, uh, applying to colleges, gathering everything together, just shifting there, like the very shift from say your home to Germany first, and then you hardly get like 1.5 years to reapply for a PhD. So it does not stay that easy. You either have to take up more time and then apply for a PhD or apply for a job or whatever. But like that shift in itself is a lot to do, because besides academics, you'll also be dealing with like visa, paperwork, like in general, just like moving yourself from one country to another. So it does not stay very easy, I think.
So I think before answering Ankit's question, I'll just answer Mayuki's follow-up question, which is I have another question. Why does it make a difference? Like, why is studying in the US better if you want to get a job there? So the corporations in the US, like if you want to get a job in the industry in the US, the simple formula is that the corporations over there value US degrees the most. Number one. Number two, being in the US, you'll realize when you go there, being in the US is like makes it way more easy to apply for jobs and be available to those jobs. So the awareness of the opportunities, knowing what to apply, when, who to talk to, like that network that you build, like the entry point into the industry comes much closer. Applying from India, so like imagine applying from India right now, right? So you open your this thing Google and you search for remote jobs in the US, or let's say jobs in the US. It's very similar to doing that if you do your degree from Germany and you're applying from Germany, right? So it's a black box for you. But when you're in the US, you see so many other people applying. You see, okay, these apply here. Like you get this kind of tips from your seniors, right? Okay, this job is opening. I have some opening in my team. Come, I can recommend you. I have this thing this job is very good. They're hiring new people. Apply here. So this practical or ground level understanding, or this ground level information becomes much more accessible to you when you're in the US. So this is like a soft side of it that you don't see, let's say, on paper. But I mean, in terms of knowledge, masters anywhere is good, even in India. So like we have very good colleges in India, your IITs, your ISC, you have your triple ITs and some good NITs also. So like masters will add to your knowledge. It's just about being closer to the place where you want to ultimately get a job, right? So it really makes a difference. So I hope that clarifies. It seems like there are a lot more questions, so maybe you can go through them quickly. So Ankit had a question.
I would just clarify this question. I have went through the question. Just before that, I would like to agree what you said. There are some visa issues as well, I think, if I am properly aware. So coming to the question, what Ankit, Shubhrajit and Anurag have, they are kind of similar. I mean, they are kind of asking the same thing. That is like, I know, I mean, what they're asking, that what Ankit is asking as a first year, it is kind of like, I don't, I mean, these terms might be new for him. So he's asking what he can do so that in future he can pursue the research path. And the same question in the context of fourth semester or second year, Shubhrajit and Anurag are asking. So I think we can answer it as a sum up to three of them. So Sree, if you want to pick it up first.
Yeah, sure. So I think these are all very good questions. And as a first year, I understand that it might be more difficult to kind of know what to do research. So a good thing to do good thing to do at that stage is to explore the different fields in computer science that are there. You can do that by taking, say, online courses or attending the sessions that, I mean, Code IST, GDSC, ASCE, they organize together. I think that's a great way to start as well. I think personally what we did, both Samarth and I, we kind of took courses outside of the curriculum to see if we are interested in something. And if you do find that interesting, you can like search research paper, what is the most recent research going on in field X, say, and that can be a way for first years. You can also get in touch with us or any of the other seniors who are doing research if you want to like find out about what we're working on, or like if you have any ideas that I think I'm interested in this, what should I do, that's also fine. And for people in more senior years, like I think someone asked also about the application process for DART-wise. I think that will take up more time, so I'll share this link. So this is by our senior Anjishnu. He's also doing a PhD right now in the US, and he also did he was a DART-wise intern, and he has this really nice blog that kind of details the entire process, so it could be helpful. And so yeah, and apart from that, for people who are in their second, third year, like we talked about earlier, it's good to like the mini project if you are in the CS department, or I think other departments also have something similar. It's a very good starting point. Talk to the professors, see what they work on, see if you like something related to that. There is also another great way. I think a lot of our departments have many PhD students who sometimes need some help. Like Samarth worked with one of the PhD students in our department, and he worked on some like part of a project, maybe implementing something, but that kind of gives you an idea about what research looks like.
Exactly. Samarth, you would like to add anything?
Yeah, so I mean, if you talk about like a roadmap, or like there was one question about which specific course can you use. So for like people in their first year, I mean, I would suggest that, okay, you first of all do learn how to code. That's like the prerequisite. You need that everywhere, right? So I mean, as part of my research, I also have to write like really complex codes so I can run various algorithms. So first thing is you do learn how to code, right? Learn data structures, algorithms, right? That is a very important thing as a computer science engineer, that you need to know those things. Now, after that, start exploring different fields, right? So the misconception these days is that research happens only in machine learning, right? Because there's large language models, there's GPT, and there's all of this stuff. I do not work on machine learning, right? So machine learning is not the only thing you can do research in. There is theoretical computer science. There is you can do research in algorithms. You can do research in like networks, operating system. So I think my friend is here. So my friend Orchishman, he is also like he's in this. He's in. So we are in the informatics department, and Orchishman is in the computer science department. At Penn State, it is like computer science is more theoretical and hardware, and IST is more like machine learning and your applied stuff. So he's here in this meeting. He works on quantum computing. So like you have these, and Anubhav also. I think Anubhav also is working on something to do with quantum computing, I guess. So there are many things that you can explore in computer science. Start by, so the first thing you do if you don't know anything about this, go watch a YouTube video, right? Watch a YouTube video. See somebody who's talking about this, somebody who's passionate about this. There are a lot of researchers who've made like simple videos to explain what they're doing. Watch these YouTube videos. Think about what things interest you. So let's say quantum computing interests you. Let's say theoretical computer science interests you. Let me tell you, theoretical computer science is like very daunting to begin with, but it's very interesting, right? So like it's very, very interesting, especially for people who like math, right? And it's not the moment you start, you can start doing it, it becomes very fun, and you think like, oh wow, I can do this, right? So watch YouTube videos. After that, start looking at blogs. So there are blogs on Medium. There's this blog website called Medium. There's a sub part of Medium called Towards Data Science, right? So that's like specifically for data science. But there are many type of blogs where people write about, okay, this is a research paper, and just simplify the research paper, right? Once you start reading those blogs and you find a more specific research interest, start reading research papers So, right, once you read a blog for a research paper, look at that research paper. How is the research paper written, right? If you are able to find some research papers or even blogs that you find interesting, start implementing them, right? So this person, so people share the code also. So like just copy the code. Just copy the code and run it. Right? You're not publishing it anywhere saying that this is my code. Copy the code, run it, and see, okay, these are the things that are involved in this. Okay, I have to make sure this is working. I have to make sure this is working. Implement that. Right? If you, let us say you are interested in generative AI, right? So generative AI is like, before LLMs, it was GANs, generative adversarial networks, which, so what they do is like they create images of people that don't exist, right? Photos of people that don't exist. Implement that, right? Do you find that interesting? Can you understand why certain parts are implemented, right? So once you are able to do that, take such projects to your professors. We have good professors in IIST, right? If you tell them, I want to do this research, they will help you, right? So take it to the professors and say, sir, I want to do this project. Ma'am, I want to do this project, right? So work with them. You have your mentors from your mini project. You have your mentors. Otherwise, everybody's open to such collaborations. And after that, when you have certain experience like this, you can apply for your internships, which is your IITs, ISC, TCS, other research labs that you have. There are other research labs also which are not very popular, but like I think you can apply for internships there, like TIFR, which is Tata Institute for Fundamental Research.
They are more popular than like these colleges.
Not as we knew, right? So
yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, thank you, Anubhav. This is a very good resource. So this is like a database you can refer to for your research opportunities when you're in your first and second year. So start realizing or start recognizing what you're interested in, right? The starting point is a YouTube video, as simple as that, a Google search, right? You are never like, okay, so many people are reading research papers already. They also had to go through this process to get there, right? So, I mean, for the first 6 months of my bachelor's, I did not know how to code. I did not know any computer science, any language, right? So it is a starting point. Everybody has a starting point. So you also have a starting point and you will ultimately reach wherever you aim to, right? So watch a YouTube video, see what you're interested in. That's the starting point, and then you can follow what
I would
goes
totally
ahead.
agree with like whatever you said is so much appropriate. But I just I totally agree with what you said. I will just counter one thing. I think the counter is like very much synchronizes with the purpose we are doing this episode. That is, I think you are asking about this this guidance path. I think you have already taken the first step, that is to join this session and to watch this whole thing. So the reason like we are doing this here, see, whenever you ask this question that what do I do currently, I'm in first year and second year, the whole purpose of doing this session is fulfilled. Because I, as an undergraduate student, when I was in first and second year, I did not get this exposure, and currently in fourth year, I know many of you are here because you want to do job. You took engineering because you want to grab a big package. But as you proceed in time, you might find your interest maybe dwelling away from 9-to-5 job, and you want to do something utilizes your capabilities, and as well as do something impactful, maybe contribute the overall knowledge that humanities have. That Sree said, I relate to it very much. So I think, so the only thing I counter is that you have taken the first step. Do you?
Yes, completely agree. Yeah.
And also,
good point.
Feel free anytime to, we are very active on, say, LinkedIn, or because we are IIST seniors, you would have multiple channels of reaching out to us or any other senior from IIST or anywhere that you feel like. Feel free to reach out to people. People are generally, they are always very much willing to help. We would be more than happy to help with any other specific questions, or like if you are like on a specific road to getting somewhere, and if you want any advice, feel free to reach out anytime.
Right.
So one more thing. Thank you, Kiran, for the LinkedIn links. But I think a couple of more questions were there. I don't want to miss any question. So Joyanto was asking that now I have a question that is now of era of AI. How is that opportunity for postdoctoral in US any good foreign countries? So Joyanto, I'm not very clear about this question, but I think I would like to address one elephant in the room, that since the AI era is now like AI is now bursting, so like you would think, okay, should I do a PhD in this only? It's not, you don't decide on the basis of only this. Yes, of course, if you're interested in AI, then you will have to join the bandwagon. It's a good thing, but it's not that only research is happening there, right? Good research is happening everywhere, and not just in computer science also. So like good research is happening even in mechanical engineering, even in like electronics, of course, but like even in other departments, good research is happening. So research is not stopping. The nature of research is changing, right? So people are incorporating AI. So even if you're like an electrical engineer, you can incorporate AI into your research if it is required, right? So I mean, don't try to say, okay, I have to like AI to be able to do good research. That's the point I was trying to make, right? You can look at other fields also and then decide what is interesting for you. And the part of staying relevant is going to come by and large. Now, I think Shayan also asked one more question, which is, how do you compare the prospects of a master's in the old IITs? Yeah, so that's a good idea. That is something I suggest to a lot of people also, that if you feel like your profile is not yet ready for a PhD, because PhD requires some research experience. So if you think you're not ready to apply for a PhD, or if you don't know right now what you want to apply to, that's also very possible. Then you can go for a master's in like IITs, top IITs, ISCE, and triple ITs. So triple IT Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, they're also very good colleges. You can go for a master's there, and you can identify your research interests, publish some research, and then have a good research profile to apply for a PhD. That's a very good idea. That's a very good approach. For that, you'll have to prepare for GATE. That takes some effort, but it's worth it, right? So that is also a very good approach. So I've seen people who have done their masters from like ISC or top IITs, and they're getting into the best of the PhD programs in the US, right? So that's also a very good path. Anubhav
has an interesting question, that what was the how did you adjust to the academic environment in the US, and what was the experience in the past few months?
Go ahead.
So it's actually great, but it's also very difficult, because as undergrad students, we tend to take curricular academics quite lightly, and we get away with that. Most of us get away quite well with that. But in the sense that, I mean, in the US degree, especially in a graduate degree, the kind of courses that you take, the kind of things that you do, they are very research oriented. So there is hardly anything where you have to like learn something and go and write exams for that. That's rare. You would mostly have to like do projects, do readings, writing. So that's a plus, I would say. But then everything you do is taken very seriously. You cannot like just brush through something and just like finish it quickly. So you have to be like invested and serious. And the best part, I think, is that the people in the administration or the professors, they are also as invested in like your success. Professors are very accessible. Like you will see world-renowned researchers, like they are like, you can just go up to them and talk to them, which is, I think, a great thing to have. And yeah, so overall it's challenging, but if you do it with sincerity, it's also very, very rewarding at the same time.
Right, that was a great insight. So anyone else have any other question else? We can draw a end. Before ending, Samarth, would you like to give some conclusionary remark? So
go ahead, Sree.
I'll say something very cliche. Ultimately, like, I mean, it's great that all of you joined, and you, I mean, I'm sure I would be happy if you were able to learn something out of this. But ultimately, I think it's best to do what you really like. You can use a lot of guidance to kind of know how to find out what you like, but ultimately stick to that. Like Samarth said that if everybody is doing AI, you don't have to do AI if you don't like it, and don't worry about not being relevant. If you are doing what you like, you will be relevant because you will do that well. If it's something that you like, you will end up doing that well, and you will stay relevant. So take every advice with a pinch of salt, and like try to find where your heart belongs. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Samarth?
I would just say that, I mean, when you identify what you like, I mean, do a good search, and when you identify what you like, work hard, right? So work hard. That is important because you will feel better if you work hard, right? If you think that, okay, I passed up on opportunities that I could have taken, I had those opportunities, but I did not know the value of those opportunities. Try to think from the perspective that yes, how valuable an opportunity is, right? So do work hard and give your best. That's all. I mean, that's what will make it worth it for you also. So irrespective of what you do, just give your best. That's what I would say. Like that's the important thing according to me.
Absolutely. So, Nana, I think we can now end it here. So, I would like to thank everyone for joining in this thing. I mean, I really did not, expect that I will receive such overwhelming response from everyone. And this is the first time Tech Talk. This season 2, we are stepping into academic things. All the 3 episodes has been on industry. So, and for me, it was a very special episode because I wanted to do it with you. You have been associated, you have started this thing, and what we are continuing. Additionally, I would like to thank Angshuman for joining in. Really glad to have you, and definitely thank you, Tanish, for recording this session, and Raksha for moderating the session. So, I think we can have it here. Lastly, thank you, Samarth and Sree, for joining me. So,
thank you for having us. It's been a great conversation. I was very happy to see so many questions, and I hope somebody, like at least, I mean, a lot of people would have benefited from this. And of course, this always stands that you can contact us for any questions that you have, to the extent to which we can answer them. But yeah, definitely feel free to contact us again.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think we can end it here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.